This is Mac OS Ken.
News on iPhone production and consumption. Apple's ad firm wants its clients off Twitter. And a short round in the Apple Fortnite fight. It is Monday, the 14th of November, 2022. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macOSKen. This show is also sponsored by SimpliSafe, the right way to protect your home at the biggest discount of the year. The holidays are upon us, a time of warmth and cheer for some, and a busy season for bad guys. This time of year, property crimes like burglaries and package thefts spike all across the country. That is why the good people at SimpliSafe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system, so you can enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. You've heard me say for years why I love SimpliSafe. I love the customization. You pick just what you need to keep your home safe. Because who knows your home better than you? You also set it up yourself. Super easy. Took me less than an hour to get my sensors, keypad, and base station up and running. Not that you're on your own. For less than $1 a day, the SimpliSafe team keeps an eye out for issues 24/7, sending emergency services as soon as they are needed. Don't miss your chance for massive savings on a great security system. Get 50% off any new system at simplisafe.com/macOSKen today. This is their biggest discount of the year. SIMPLI. That's simplisafe.com/macOSKen. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. We're hearing more about planned production increases for iPhone in India. Production of iPhone 14 has been disrupted for the better part of a month thanks to an outbreak of COVID-19 at the Foxconn iPhone plant in Zhengzhou, China. Disruptions have included the plant operating in closed-loop mode, thought to be less efficient than normal production, workers leaving the plant in droves due to hardships around the COVID-19 outbreak, and a week-long lockdown from the 2nd of November through the 9th to try to stop the COVID outbreak from breaking out more. All of that led to Apple issuing a press release just over a week ago saying that the company is working to meet continued strong demand for iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max. Hard to say when that's going to happen, though, because have you heard about those disruptions? Between China's zero-COVID policy and tensions between the U.S. and China, Apple's had plenty of reason to want to shift some production out of the Middle Kingdom and into other places. Places like India, perhaps. A few hours before Apple issued its iPhone warning last week, TF International analyst Ming-Chi Kuo hit Twitter saying, "My latest survey indicates that Foxconn will accelerate the expansion of iPhone production capacity in India after Zhengzhou iPhone plant's COVID-19 lockdown." And now we are hearing more on that. 9 to 5 Mac highlights a Reuters report that says Foxconn is looking to grow its workforce in India 4 times over. The one site quotes the other saying, Apple supplier Foxconn plans to quadruple the workforce at its iPhone factory in India over 2 years, 2 government officials with knowledge of the matter said, pointing to a production adjustment as it faces disruptions in China. Taiwan-based Foxconn now plans to boost the workforce at its plant in southern India to 70,000 by adding 53,000 more workers over the next 2 years, said the sources, who declined to be named as the discussions are private. That will not completely solve the problem, and it won't solve any of it anytime soon. I mean, 2 years is pretty soon in the grand scheme, but it's not going to help headed into this holiday season. As for not solving the problem completely, the iPhone City plant in Zhengzhou is thought to have about 200,000 employees. It's hard to replace 200,000 with 130,000 fewer people. Then again, what most have talked about is Apple diversifying its supply chain, not getting out of China entirely. Or, as 9 to 5 Mac puts it, creating this kind of capacity should make Apple significantly more resilient to future issues in China. An anticipated increase in average selling prices for iPhones won't just come from the Pro end of the iPhone 14 line. That is one takeaway from market tracker Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, or CIRP. Taking a look at iPhone sales for the end of September and the beginning of October, including the first 3 weeks of sales for iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Pro, and iPhone 14 Pro Max, the firm found folks opting for more storage. If I'm honest, the CIRP numbers are hard to pin down, but they do provide some interesting insight. For now, the firm says, the headline is consumers continued their long-standing tendency to upgrade from base storage for the new iPhone 14 models and the more expensive iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max. A majority of customers paid a premium for larger storage capacity phones. That is not true for people who went for the least expensive models available. A majority of folks who purchased iPhone SE and iPhone 12 did opt for the entry-level storage, according to CIRP's findings. iPhone 11 was a bit of an outlier there, with 48% of buyers surveyed going for the entry-level storage. 42% went for one of the two higher capacities available, while 9% did not know what storage capacity they bought. See, to me that sounds silly. Then I realize I'm only pretty sure what capacity I purchased. Of course, it wasn't 6 weeks ago for me. It was a year and 6 weeks, give or take. As for what the storage numbers mean to Apple, Philip Elmer DeWitt at Apple 3.0 says, I suspect Apple profits handsomely on the 128 gigabyte step-ups it sells for $100 each. Units of 128 gigabytes retail on Amazon for $20 a piece, and you can bet Apple gets a steep discount for buying in unimaginable bulk. For iPhone sales overall, the numbers are interesting, as I say, though they are hard to pin down. You can dig through them for yourself on CIRP's Apple Substack. Apple's ad agency has a recommendation for its clients. Stay out of the chaotic mess that is Twitter until things settle down. Apple Insider ran a report late last week saying that firm Omnicom has recommended a halt to advertising on Twitter until certain guarantees about trust and safety can be made. If you've not been keeping up with what's happened to, at, and around Twitter since Elon Musk took ownership 19 days ago, I am not even going to try to recap it except to say chaotic mess might be an understatement. That is a term from the Mac Observer, though Apple Insider may be going more understated, saying that Twitter has had a tumultuous few days. Too tumultuous for Omnicom, it seems. The piece highlights a memo seen by The Verge from Omnicom Media Group to its clients that had the firm suggesting to clients like Apple and others that they pause activity on Twitter in the short term. Specifically, the ad agency is concerned about not just impersonation, but also layoffs in Twitter trust and safety teams, resignation of executives responsible for FTC compliance, and more. Citing evidence that the risk to our clients' brand safety has risen sharply to a level most would find unacceptable, the memo has Omnicom saying, "We recommend pausing activity on Twitter in the short term until the platform can prove it has reintroduced safeguards to an acceptable level and has regained control of its environment." News of another Ready, Fire, Aim lawsuit against Apple. The site Bloomberg Law says the Cupertino company has been hit with a class action lawsuit over the tracking of mobile app activity, specifically in the App Store. Last week, a pair of security researchers who go by the name MISC found that an old version of iOS 14.6, sends Apple a detailed log of how users interact with the App Store. To me, this makes sense. On last week's checklist, number 303 by Secure Mac, we put forth the argument that if you go into a store, whether physical like a Macy's or digital like the App Store, you got to figure the store owner is keeping up with what you're doing. Apple has never said that it didn't. What Apple has said is that it won't share information about specific users with third parties. Also worth noting, MISC says it's unclear if Apple still collects analytics data in iOS 16, even when sharing analytics and personalized recommendations are switched off. But ready, fire, aim. Bloomberg Law has the firm Bursar and Fisher on the case. They are arguing on behalf of their clients and a proposed class of California iPhone users that Apple records users' private activity on mobile applications without their consent and despite its privacy assurances, in violation of the California Invasion of Privacy Act. The piece quotes the suit as saying, privacy is one of the main issues that Apple uses to set its products apart from competitors, but Apple's privacy guarantees are completely illusory. The suit goes on to say, through its pervasive and unlawful data tracking and collection business, Apple knows even the most intimate and potentially embarrassing aspects of the user's app usage, regardless of whether the user accepts Apple's illusory offer to keep such activities private. The suit accuses Apple of unjust enrichment, invasion of privacy, and violations of the California Invasion of Privacy Act, which sounds like the same thing twice to me, but I'm no lawyer. The suit seeks class action certification, injunctive relief, compensatory damages, statutory damages, punitive damages, restitution, and attorney's fees and costs. Bloomberg Law received no comment from Apple on the issue. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, BetterHelp, online therapy. You know what's great about therapy? If there is something bothering you, maybe just a feeling you can't quite figure out, a therapist can help you figure it out. You know what's great about BetterHelp? It's therapy on your terms. The whole thing is digital, so you're not bound by who's around you. I like that BetterHelp makes it easy to change therapists if you find the one that you find isn't quite right for you, and I like that BetterHelp is always there. I've had a couple of runs with a couple of BetterHelp therapists. Starting again is as easy as accessing the app. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. Couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macOSKen. That's betterhelp.com/macOSKen. betterhelp.com/macOSKen. The Apple Fortnite fight is on again. A piece from ABC News says the Cupertino Company and Epic Games will argue their sides before 3 judges on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals today. This is the fight that kicked off in 2020 when Epic bypassed Apple's in-app payment mechanism, allowing Fortnite players to make purchases in the app. That cut Apple out of its usual 30% commission on in-app purchases. It also violated the developer agreement between Apple and Epic. Took Apple less than a day to revoke Epic's developer license. Didn't take much longer for Epic to sue Apple for alleged antitrust violations. According to ABC, although the judge hearing the case, Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers, declared Apple's exclusive control over iPhone apps wasn't a monopoly, Gonzalez-Rogers opened one loophole that Apple wants to close. The judge ordered Apple to allow apps to provide links to payment alternatives outside the App Store, a requirement that has been put off until the appeals court rules. They will hear arguments today, though they are not likely to rule for quite some time. The piece says it'll likely be 6 months before a decision is handed down. Whoever loses is likely to take the case to the Supreme Court. The report says that could push a final ruling into 2025. There's a new Apple store in town. Well, there is if your town is Portland, Oregon. Mac Rumors ran a piece late last week saying that a new store at Bridgeport Village was set to open on Saturday, the 12th of November. The location replaces another location in the same outdoor shopping center, according to the report. Only this one's bigger, according to Mac Rumors, and features Apple's latest retail design, including a dedicated pickup area for orders placed in Apple's online store. And finally today, icky or not, Steve Jobs' old Birkenstock sandals ended up a hot-ticket item. I told you Friday that Julian's Auctions was auctioning the footwear. The Birkenstocks were previously owned by Jobs' former house manager, Mark Scheff. After they were owned by Jobs. When I told you about the sandals on Friday, bidding was just above $22,000. Julian's was hoping to get between $60,000 and $80,000 for the 40-something to 50-something-year-old sandals. I also told you the whole thing sounded icky to me, though ickiness does not negate value, it seems. Bidding on the Birkenstocks closed over the weekend. They sold for $218,750. The Daily Observations podcast from the Mac Observer will be late today. Different publishing systems for this show versus that show, and that one's having trouble. Keep hitting refresh, though. TMO managing editor Jeff Butts and I are talking about the watchful eye Apple keeps on the App Store, plus a new feature for the show. 3 letters from listeners kick off Mailbag Monday. That is all today on the Daily Observations podcast from the Mac Observer. Available at some point on macobserver.com or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by SimpliSafe. Get 50% off your new home security system by visiting simplysafe.com/macOSKen today. This show is also sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray. Omnicom.